Topic: Support and transport in plants, the intake of water and minerals into the xylem in roots. Aims of lesson. At the end of this lesson you should be able to define basic terminology such as capillarity, root pressure, cohesion, adhesion, etc. Label drawings. Interpret diagrams of the intake and transport of water and minerals in a plant. Interpret diagrams of the translocation of manufactured food from the leaves to other parts of a plant. Introduction. You have studied cell structure and the functions of the different organelles in grade 9 and in term 1 in grade 10. You have studied the concept of a tissue as a group of similar cells that are adapted for a particular function in grade 10. Revise the structure of the plant root, stem, and leaf of a plant in lessons 1 and 2. Concepts and skills. Below are definitions of some of the terms that you will study under this section. Use your textbook and underline all the new terms/words that you encounter while studying through this section. Use the glossary in your textbook to define these new terms/words. Note, at least 2 marks are awarded if you can define a term correctly in a test or examination. Root hair, unicellular epidermal outgrowths that increases the absorption surface of the root. Transpiration, loss of water vapor through the aerial parts of a plant, especially through the stomata. Capillarity, the phenomenon where liquids spontaneously move up tubes with a small cross-section. Root pressure, the upward force that develops in roots due to the continuous influx of water from the soil. Cohesion, force of attraction between water molecules. Adhesion, force of attraction between water molecules and the walls of the xylem vessels. Water potential, the ability of a solution to release water because of its large number of free water molecules. Osmosis, the movement of water molecules from an area with high water potential to an area with a low water potential through a selectively permeable membrane. Diffusion, spontaneous movement of molecules in liquids and gases from an area of high to an area of low concentration. Uptake of water and mineral salts by the roots. The water potential of the soil water is higher, contains less dissolved substances, than the water potential of the cell sap in the vacuoles of the root hair. Water molecules move by osmosis through the permeable cell wall, through the selectively permeable cell membrane, cytoplasm and selectively permeable tonoplast into the vacuole of the root hair. The vacuole swells and the pressure within the root hair increases. The pressure that builds up in the vacuole is called turgor pressure. Movement of water from the root hair to the xylem of the root. The water potential in the root hair is now higher than in the adjacent parenchyma cells in the cortex of the root. Water moves in 2 ways to the xylem of the root. The main route that water takes is from cell to cell by osmosis. This is a slow process. Water can also move through the cell walls and intercellular air spaces between the cells by diffusion. This is a faster process. When water reaches the endodermis, with Casparian strips, it cannot pass through the cell walls of these cells. Water now moves through the passage cells of the endodermis through the pericycle to the root xylem. Upward movement of water from the xylem of the root to the leaves of the plant. Revise the cross-section through the leaf in lesson 1. The 3 forces involved in the upward movement of water in a plant is capillarity, root pressure and transpiration pull. Refer to the list of definitions and textbook and study the sections on capillarity and root pressure. Transpiration pull is the main force that draws water upwards in a plant. The water potential in the intercellular air spaces of the mesophyll cells decreases as water vapor is lost through the stomata of the leaves. Water molecules diffuse from the cell walls of the mesophyll cells into the air spaces. The water potential of the mesophyll cell walls is now lower than that of the cell sap of the mesophyll cells. This water potential gradient extends back to the leaf xylem. Tension builds up and a suction force develops at the top of the stem xylem, which pulls water up from the root xylem. A column of water is pulled upwards. Therefore, the water that was lost through the leaves by transpiration is replaced by the absorbed water from the soil through the root hairs. The translocation of manufactured food from the leaves to other parts of the plant. Translocation is the movement of substances, e.g. sugars, sucrose, that are produced in the leaves during photosynthesis to other part of the plant. These substances are transported by the phloem from the leaves to the stems and the roots. Know the meaning of instructional verbs in test and examination questions, e.g. Instructional verb. Meaning. Name. Give the name of something. Differentiate. Use differences to qualify between two or more categories. Tabulate. Draw a table and indicate the answers as direct pairs. Describe. State in sentences the main points of a process. Explain. Give your answer in a cause-effect or statement and reason sequence. Compare. Give similarities and differences between concepts. Answer the following questions. Question 1. The following diagram represents the pathway of water through the root. Study the diagram and answer the questions that follow. 1.1 If it has rained recently, give the letter in the diagram where the water potential will be the highest. 1.2 Name two structural suitabilities of the root hair for the function of water absorption. 1.3 Which letter in the diagram refers to the endodermis? 1.4 Which special feature is present in the endodermis to control the pathway of water to the part labeled D? 1.5 Name two forces responsible for the upward movement of water through the tissue of which D forms part of. 1.6 Explain the different ways in which part labeled D is structurally suited to transport water upwards in plants. Question 2. Describe the absorption of water by a root hair of a plant as well as the lateral movement of the absorbed water from the root hair to the xylem of the root. Question 3. Study the following diagram and answer the questions that follow. 3.1 Identify cell A and cell B. 3.2 State 3 adaptations of cell A that will enable it to absorb water. 3.3 State 2 pathways along which water moves from cell A to cell B. 3.4 Name the tissue not shown in the diagram which will transport water to all parts of the plant. 3.5 Explain two ways in which the tissue mentioned in question 3.4 is adapted for its function. Question 4. Study the diagram below and answer the questions that follow. 4.1 Label parts 1 to 4. 4.2 Name the main process responsible for the movement of water from the roots to A. 4.2 Name processes B, C, and D respectively. 4.3 Tabulate four differences in the structure of the organ illustrated in the diagram above, in mesophytes and in xerophytes. 4.4 Explain how process C will be affected in rainy conditions. Common errors made by learners in examinations. Learners not familiar with basic terminology. Learners do not understand instructional verb /s in a question, e.g. the difference between describe and explain. Learners not able to provide correct labels to drawings/illustrations. Learners cannot describe the intake of water and the transport of water through a plant. Activity/assessment. Complete the activity/questions on the sections on the intake and transport of water in a plant in your textbook. Consolidation. Define all the terminology relevant to the topic/is covered in this lesson. Label and draw diagrams. Note, the knowledge and skills gained in this section will help you to have a better understanding of the following sections that you still need to deal with in grade 11. Biodiversity in plants. Values. By studying and learning about plants, you will develop a deep appreciation of the importance of plant conservation as humans and animals are dependent on plants for their survival.